Fandom bullies often claim Entrapta shippers are privileged, but if you look at polls and what fans say about their lives on their blogs or on Twitter, this is far from true. Most of them are actually disabled and queer. I noticed the same people also being into other ships like this, with one or both characters being outcasts or villains or monsters. I have no polls about this, only feelings, but it seems as if it's the same in unrelated fandoms using the monsterfucker trope. I saw many explorations of the monsterfucker trope from queer or women's rights perspectives, so I wanted to add a disabled view. This will also be a queer and women's perspective because I'm a queer woman too. Since disability rap is so rare, I only have 2 male/female ships that fully fit the description of disabled monsterfuckers. Entrapta and Hordak from She-Ra and the Princess of Power, and Eliza and the Fishman from The Shape of Water. And I deliberately said male/female, by the way, not het, since Entrapta is a queer ship in the way that Entrapta is canonically bisexual and Hordak is heavily queer-coded. And as for Eliza and the Fishman, well, we don't know what their sexualities are apart from that they are attracted to each other. As a bisexual person, it's important to me that queer people in male/female relationships are still queer. I will, however, add examples of same-sex ships that almost fit the trope in one way or another. Hi, I'm Telly's greatest fan, a fan artist and writer, and occasionally I also make YouTube videos. Monsterfucking, despite feeling like a very recent trope, is not new as old myths and folk tales show. The monster represents the other in these stories, so it has to be feared, but also has to be attractive in some way to show the threat or the temptation through the other in the story. So being attracted and interested about monster is a logical consequence of that. It goes deeper than that, though. Disabled people, queer people, people of color were and still are perceived and treated as the other. There is hardly any to no real representation of these people too. People want to see themselves in stories to not be alone anymore. Both Entrapta and The Shape of Water directly play with this sense of otherness. Entrapta and Hordak both start out as recluses. Entrapta is mistreated and infantilized by the princesses, who are the ideal people and the power in this world, while Hordak hides his true self behind the brutal overlord facade out of fear. Entrapta is autistic and the princesses mistreat her because of her behavior and because they think she's incompetent because of it. Hordak has been thrown out of the space cult he was cloned for because of his disability. It's also implied because of his queerness, too.
You have given yourself a name.
You're trying to make his way back. Oh, and Hordak is also a 6 feet tall, bat cyborg monster with red glowing eyes and fangs and claws. Entrapta can be monstrous too on her own. Her hair is prehensile and she can create super strong and deadly tentacles from it. Is this how you pronounce it? Tentacles? You know, the thing octopuses have? Whatever. But they don't fear each other or despise each other. They bond over their disabilities and accept each other for who they are. They respect each other in a way nobody else ever bothered to do. And they are also attracted to each other as much as it's possible to show in a kids' show. Eliza is a cleaner in a government research facility during the Cold War, and she's treated as dumb and lesser by her superiors for being a woman and mute. The ones who do respect her have been othered themselves. Her friend at the job, who is a black woman, her neighbor, who is a gay man. With bad treatment by those more powerful than her, and her curiosity get her to discover a fish-like humanoid creature kept in the lab as she is tasked to clean up blood there. He is tortured and kept in chains in order to weaponize him or his body's secrets against the Soviets. He is literally treated as subhuman. In one scene, the villain of the movie describes him as lesser than human. And this is a description that's also often used for minorities, though most of the time not directly spoken of, but only implied. Just like in Trapdoor with Hordak, Eliza is not scared of his appearance or even his clearly dangerous claws. He can't speak verbally, but he learns sign language from Eliza. She shows him music and shares her food, and they form a friendship. As the scientists plan to dissect him, Eliza makes an elaborate plan to save him. She feels seen by the way he treats her, not as if she's flawed, but just as her. This shift likely comes from creators of both of these being marginalized themselves. Shape of Water was created by Guillermo del Toro, who is Mexican and explicitly said that he was inspired to the movie by the beauty of the other and the beauty in immigration. The Entrapted part of She-Ra was mostly created by Ray Geiger, Josie Campbell, and several other queer and or female writers. Ray Geiger is a bisexual, neurodivergent, non-binary person, and Josie Campbell is a queer woman. Though it is important to say that the actors of both Entrapta and Hordak and Eliza and the Fishman were all abled neurotypicals as far as I know, and especially in She-Ra, actually asking disabled people might have prevented some of the more ableist parts of the series. Disabled people and other marginalized people are often just seen as the way they are different and reduced down to it. They are treated as if it's their fault that they don't fit in. So it's powerful to see someone so visibly different being accepted. But for me, for example, it was very healing to see how Entrapta and Hordak don't see each other as flawed or wrong, because I, as an autistic person, would have loved to have such a relationship.
At me, he does not know how I am incomplete. He sees me as I am.
Imperfection is beautiful. At least to me. I'm a failure.
You are not a...
It's that fantasy of being seen as you are, but for once it's okay to be this way. Of not being alone anymore. That idea of acceptance is also visible in ships that don't 100% fit the disabled monsterfucker trope. Eddie Brooke is not disabled, but it's still nice to see Venom accept him despite him having lost his job and his life being a mess. And it's also nice to eventually have Eddie look over Venom being a black murderous alien goo.
We are Venom.
Neither Katrina Cornwell nor Laurel from Star Trek Discovery are disabled either, but Laurel surely qualifies as the rare female monster with her claws and fangs and riches everywhere. But Katrina managed to see above this, and both manage to see behind them being on opposing sides of the war.
You're not what I expected.
Neither are you.
Telly and G in the last book of Scott Westerfeld's Ugly series are a strange example. They both have been made to tall, superhuman, strong and fast, scary-looking cyborgs, almost not human anymore, to protect their world's dystopian system. Physically, they are not disabled at all. And indeed, Telly is quite ableist about her former boyfriend's brain damage-induced trembling. But the brain part of the surgery has given both of them psychological problems, aggression and impulsivity and restless energy, and a superiority complex. And Telly spends most of the book fighting her own brain in what reminds me at my own fight against mental illness. It leads to Shay and her fighting over their past, but in the end Shay accepts her. Amaya from The Dragon Prince is a deaf human knight. Her arch-enemy and later lover, Janai, is an elf and so not quite a monster, though she has a monstrous heat form, and the humans treat her as a monster. But again, the theme of looking past the war, and Janai is also not bothered by Amaya's disability. I could end there, but I want to go deeper into the coding part again. As I said, monsters are coded as the other and what people fear. So they are coded as foreigners or POC or queer. But abled neurotypicals are also uncomfortable around disabled people. Certain hate groups calling it an autism epidemic, or how disability is treated as a fate worse than death often. This shows in monsters often being based vaguely on disfigured people. For example, Shadow Reaver with her scars all over her body, she hides with her mask, or the Phantom of the Opera, who also hides his disfigured face with a mask. I can't really speak for physically disabled people since I'm not physically disabled myself, but they are othered because of their different bodies. Monsters have even more different bodies from most people, but they also have the power to fuck things up. This likely feels empowering. It's likely also healing to see monsters be accepted and loved, not just despite, but because of the difference. As for neurodivergent people as myself, we are not looking different, but we are behaving different, so we are still treated as other. Often we are even called monsters, which happens especially often with scary mental illnesses such as schizophrenia or personality disorders. Or we are called like animals or not fully human. This one fucked me up especially much as an autistic person. Or on the more subtler forms, emotionless or too emotional or mind like a child. It's again empowering to see powerful but so alien person get accepted and loved. Since representation is so rare, also these coded characters are often the only representation we got. I might read too much into it, but Venom feels like the journey of learning how to live with a new mental illness. Especially the scene where Eddie breaks down because he's scared of the change feels like this. Monster stories also often contrast normal against the monstrous, and often, intentionally or not, the normal actually looks bad in comparison. For example, in Shape of Water, the relationship of the villain to his good housewife feels cold and brutal even, in comparison to Eliza and the Fishman understanding and their gentle sexual exploration. It's not intentional, but Entrapta and Hordek's respect for each other and their similarities and bond feels deeper and more mature than certain other relationships in the show that are portrayed as the ideal. As a disabled person, and really every kind of person being different from the norm, you got told so often how being normal is better and that you should aspire to being this. Seeing that normal actually is not better is empowering, because you're free to be yourself now. I feel like I repeat obvious stuff, but I still wanted to make this video since I love this trope. Hope you liked it.